All right, today we are going to build the perfect pig pen from the ground up. And I'm not just talking about a shelter. I'm talking about a strategic asset, something that boosts animal welfare and your bottom line. So let's dive right in.
So let's start with a really important question. The structure you build, it's honestly one of the most critical business decisions you'll ever make. This isn't just about four walls and a roof, right? It's a major investment, and that investment should be paying you back, not costing you.
And that's exactly why this question is so crucial. You see, poor housing, it just creates this whole cascade of problems. We're talking stress, disease, and straight up financial loss. It's actively working against your goals, turning what should be an asset into a huge liability. But don't worry, we're here to fix that.
Okay, so here's our game plan, our blueprint for success. First, we'll cover why housing is so darn critical. Then, we'll look at the different systems you can choose from. After that, we'll dive deep into the 4 pillars of great design, see how they apply to different life stages, and we'll wrap up by pointing out the common costly mistakes you absolutely need to avoid. All right, section 1, why pig housing matters. And let me tell you, the stakes here are incredibly high. Getting this right from the very beginning it's fundamental to your success.
Here's the bottom line. A bad home has a very, very real cost. Look at this. We're talking about stress, which slows down growth, increased sickness, poor feed conversion. These aren't just abstract welfare issues. No, these are direct hits to your profits. You end up spending way more on feed and vet bills, all for a smaller return. It's a losing game.
Okay, on to section 2. Choosing your housing system. Now, this is your first big decision. Think of it as the foundational philosophy for your entire operation, and you've really got 3 main paths to consider. This table lays out the trade-offs pretty clearly. On one end, you've got the intensive system. It gives you maximum control and efficiency, but boy, it requires some serious capital and complex management. On the other end, there's free range, super low cost, lets pigs be pigs, but you're exposed to big risks like predators and the weather. And right in the middle, you have semi-intensive. It's a nice balance, right? Better welfare, but it does take up more land and you have to be on top of parasite control. Ultimately, your choice really comes down to your capital, your land, and your specific business goals. All right, section 3, the 4 pillars of design. Now listen up because this is important. Regardless of which system you choose, intensive, free range, whatever, these next 4 elements are the absolute non-negotiables for a successful design. This is the real core of our blueprint. Pillar number 1, space. And I know, it sounds obvious, right? But you'd be surprised. Overcrowding is one of the fastest ways to completely undermine your entire operation. It is the number 1 driver of stress and aggression, and that directly hammers your growth, their health, and, you guessed it, your bottom line. And here are the hard numbers you need to hit. Just look at this. The space requirement more than doubles as a pig goes from a weaner to a finisher. If you get these numbers wrong, you're creating a massive bottleneck. You see, if you give finishers too little space, they take longer to reach market weight. That costs you a ton in feed and time. And not enough space for your sows? That can lead to injuries and stress, which will absolutely impact their future litters. Okay, pillar number 2 is ventilation. Now, you can't see it, but the quality of the air is absolutely critical. Proper airflow is what removes all that excess heat, moisture, and those nasty gases like ammonia. You know, the stuff that causes respiratory diseases. Fresh air is not a luxury, people. It is a necessity for healthy growth. So you basically have 2 main options here. You've got natural ventilation, which is really cost-effective. It just uses windows and open sides, which is fantastic for warmer tropical climates. Then, for more enclosed buildings or colder regions, you've got mechanical ventilation. This uses fans and exhaust systems, and it gives you incredibly precise control over the environment. But you do have to factor in those operational costs. Moving on to pillar number 3, flooring. Think of this as the literal foundation of their health. I mean, the surface your pigs are living on 24/7 affects everything, from their foot health and hygiene all the way to their overall comfort and well-being. And your choice of flooring really depends on the specific need at each stage. For instance, concrete slatted floors, they are excellent for waste drainage and keeping things clean. Solid concrete with bedding is definitely more comfortable, but it's also a lot more work to keep clean. And for those tiny, vulnerable newborn piglets, you absolutely want something like plastic or rubber mats to give them comfort, warmth, and safety. And that brings us to our 4th and final pillar,
Temperature. Pigs are extremely sensitive to their environment. If they're too hot or too cold, they're just burning energy trying to stay comfortable. And that's energy that should be going directly towards growth. Keeping them in that perfect comfort zone is absolutely crucial for feed efficiency. And here's a fascinating fact that really drives this point home. Did you know pigs have very few sweat glands? It's true. They can't sweat to cool themselves down like we do. This makes them completely 100% dependent on the environment you create for them. So your role as the architect is to manage that temperature on their behalf. And just look at how specific these temperature ranges are. It's not a suggestion, it's a requirement. A newborn piglet needs it to be a toasty 30 to 34 degrees Celsius, while a big ol' sow is perfectly happy down at 16 to 20. Being even a few degrees off, especially for those really vulnerable young piglets, can immediately stall their growth and make them way more susceptible to getting sick.
So, how do you manage all that heat, especially in warmer climates? Well, here are 3 really effective solutions. First, you've got misting systems, which are great for lowering the air temperature. Second, ample shade and good ventilation. Those are the absolute non-negotiable basics. And third, if you're running a semi-intensive or free-range system, nothing beats a good old-fashioned wallowing area. It lets pigs do what comes naturally to cool off.
Okay, on to section 4, designing for life stages. Now we get to apply our blueprint. You see, a pig's needs change dramatically throughout its life. So this idea of a one-size-fits-all design, it won't work. Not if you want to be profitable. Think about this for a second. A single sow can have anywhere from 8 to 12 piglets in just 1 litter. That number alone should tell you how incredibly critical the farrowing or birthing stage is. The survival of up to a dozen tiny, fragile newborns depends entirely on you providing a specialized, protective environment for them. So as you can see, each life stage demands its own custom design. Farrowing houses, for example, use special crates to keep the sow from accidentally crushing her piglets. Then the weaner and grower pens need to be warm and completely draft-free. Finisher housing has to be way more spacious and have stronger flooring to handle those heavy pigs. And of course, for your pregnant sows in gestation housing, non-slip floors are a must to prevent dangerous falls. All right, we're in the home stretch. Section 5, common mistakes to avoid. For our last section, let's just quickly run through the most common design failures out there. Seriously, think of this as your checklist of what not to do. These right here, these are the 4 big profit killers. It's pretty simple, really. Poor ventilation, that leads directly to respiratory diseases. Overcrowding, it causes stress and aggression. Inadequate flooring, that results in painful foot injuries. And improper waste management, that creates toxic ammonia levels. Honestly, if you can just avoid these 4 failures, you are already way, way ahead of the game. So there you have it. We've covered the why, the what, and the how. You now have the 4 pillars, the plans for each life stage, and the major pitfalls to avoid. The complete blueprint for a profitable, efficient, and high-welfare operation is right here, in your hands. So the only question left is, what will you build?